gentlemen, welcome to the second ever episode of The Weigh-In. We've got a very, very special show tonight. Later on, we'll be joined by UFC 2 alternate competitor Fred Ettish. And first off, it's Sunday. Last night, we had a very, it was a good card. It was a good UFC card last night. It was Smith versus Rakic. But it ended up kind of being a lackluster card. Let's be honest. First off, the main event. Anthony Smith, Aleksandar Rakic. I don't know how to say his last name, I'll be honest. It wasn't a bad fight. There was moments, spurts, when they were on the feet where it was a good back and forth fight, but Smith just didn't look in it, man. I think he came back way too fast after that Glover Teixeira loss. I think he should have took a good 6 months, maybe even a year off. I mean, that was a bad beating. He got teeth knocked out. He broke an orbital. That was not a good night for him. I can't believe he came back as fast as he did. But that being said, he didn't get beat really badly this time. He just got outclassed. He just got beat. And Rakic, what a good prospect he is. I mean, he's already calling for the winner of Reyes and Blachowicz. I mean, I don't know about that. I think he needs one or two more big wins. Smith, I know he's talking about maybe dropping back to middleweight. I think he's a little too big for that. I would say the key for him would be to maybe put on some muscle, because I know he says he sucks getting stuck underneath them big guys, and I don't think a cut would be good for him either. I think he needs to just maybe gain some muscle. I don't know. I think he just should take some more time off. I mean, when he's on, he's on. He's Anthony Lionheart Smith. And then the co-main event, this one was disappointing. I mean, unfortunately, that's how Neil Magny kind of fights. But it's strange to me. I mean, he ran right through Robbie Lawler. I mean, Lawler did not look like he was in that at all last night. I mean, Lawler just didn't even look like he wanted to be there. Like, they'd get into situations when Magny had Lawler pinned up against the fence, or when he was on top, and just the look on Lawler's face, I mean, he didn't look worried. He didn't look like he wanted to win. He just looked lackadaisical. I mean, he just looked lethargic out there. And I don't know if that's Lawler's a blood and guts fighter, maybe, fighting without fans. This is his first time fighting an empty arena. Maybe that took a little bit of the zen out of his step. Very possible that Colby Covington and Rafael dos Anjos, maybe those losses, those can break a guy. I mean, he got completely outworked in those fights. So I don't know. But definitely a bad night for him. Didn't take a lot of damage, just got controlled. Magny really is, he's really good, obviously, but baffles me. He was getting in these really dominant positions and not finishing. Like, he'd have a choke in and then let go of it. And I don't know if he has maybe he's afraid to pull the trigger and finish. That's what makes his fights a little more on the boring side. Is just he's not just if he was going for the finish, it would be a little bit more exciting, but it's like he pulls back. I don't know, but very dominant performance. He looked great, to say the least, though. He did look great. And I think what's next for him is definitely a top 10. I know Lawler was 13, he was 14. Definitely a top 10. I think a good match for him would be Khamzat Chimaev. There's a good one. I think that'd be a good fight for Chimaev, too, to break into the rankings. I'd say that would be a good one. But yeah, man. Another fight from last night, definitely fight of the night, Ricardo Lamas and Algeo. That was definitely fight of the night, a 3-round war, and Lamas really put it on him in that third round, brought the dog out of him, and got the win, man. I mean, I know he was talking about retirement after the fight. He's in his late 30s, but he looked great. That was the best Ricardo Lamas has looked in a long time. He looked spectacular. He looked like a fighter last night. He fought hard. And then, I'd say the fighter of the night, for me, Lamas has an argument, but definitely the performance of the night was that first round rear naked choke from Alex Bruce Leroy. Caceres looked great last night. He got him in that front headlock. He spun around, what's the kid's name? Austin Springer, that's who he's fighting. He spun around his back, lightning quick, sealed in that choke, and that was a wrap right there. First round submission. Alex Caceres is on a little bit of a tear right now. He's on a 3-fight win streak. He defeated Chase Hooper in his last fight. He just got a good win over Austin Springer. Alex Caceres is really coming into his own. He's got a mixed record, but he's really coming into his own. And that's about it for last night. This weekend, There's a big fight. Alistair Overeem is going to go against Augusto Sakai, an up-and-coming heavyweight. My prediction for that, Overeem's looked great. I mean, Overeem's, he always looks great. It's just whether or not he gets caught or not. His chin is suspect. But he looks great. I mean, he's probably the most skilled striker in the heavyweight division still. But I'm going to take Overeem. Overeem by decision. That's my pick. And then the co-main event on that card is Sijara Eubanks versus Rosa. And that's a women's bantamweight matchup. And I'm going to take Eubanks on that one. And then you got the return of Michel Pereira. This is his first fight back after he lost to Diego Sanchez by DQ. Landed an illegal knee. But, I mean, he was dominating that fight. He's had a rocky run. I mean, exciting fighter, but that first fight, he gassed out and lost a decision. And then this next fight, he came out and, was dominating Sanchez, but landed an illegal knee. I mean, he's had a rocky road. They're trying to get this hype train behind him. He needs a win. So this is a must-win for Pereira for sure. And then we've got a good featherweight matchup between Ricky Simone and Brian Kelleher. That should be a good fight. That's at featherweight. Simone usually fights at bantamweight, but he's moving up to featherweight for this one. And my pick on that one is Ricky Simone. Alright, and that's that. Now, let's go to my interview with Mr. Fred Ettish. I had a great time talking to him. He's a very down-to-earth, true martial artist. Let's go talk to Fred Ettish. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm joined by Fred Ettish, UFC royalty right now. How are you doing today, Fred?
I'm doing alright. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. Alright, Fred, so for all those who don't know, you competed in UFC 2, right?
That's correct.
Second ever UFC tournament. Wow, what year was that, 94?
1994, March.
Awesome. So for those of you out there that don't know, can you tell us a little bit about your backstory and what got you into martial arts and all that?
Well, that's a long time because I'm pretty old, but I got into martial arts because I was a kid who wanted to be a tough guy. I was tired of getting my butt whipped and thought that was the ticket out. I quickly found out that really wasn't the best thing for me as far as a reason, but the reasons turned out to be just to give me a lot of worthwhile things to do, decent, healthy people to be around, and I got hooked right away, and I never looked back.
Yep, that's how it goes for most people. I think everybody wants to be a tough guy or stop a tough guy. That's always how it goes, and it always
that gets both.
Yep. So how did you get into that UFC tournament, Fred? I understand you were an alternate.
Yeah, that's another fairly long story. I had not seen UFC 1. Mm-hmm. One of my students brought me a copy of Black Belt magazine and showed me that read about what the UFC actually was. Uh-huh. And he said, "Hey," he said, "you should try to get in on this. This would be perfect for you for the way that you fight." Uh-huh. I read it, and I saw that some guy named Hoist Gracie cleaned everybody up, and he was about my size. Mm-hmm. I thought that it looked like a really good challenge. I was always up for a challenge. Being a karate guy, we had karate tournaments, and I hated them. They were very unrealistic. There was a lot of prohibitive rules. If you were one of the favored people at the tournament, they would make all kinds of allowances for you. Yeah. But if you weren't one of the golden children, then they'd screw you pretty bad. Yeah. For example, I lost a fight, a quote-unquote fight, with a guy once who never touched me, but I hit him too hard, they said, and so I lost the fight.
Gotcha.
I fought a guy, a Taekwondo stylist, and he kept doing the high spinning stuff that they're known for doing, and I kept moving at an angle and grabbing a hold of him and throwing him out of the ring area, and everybody got really angry at me for that.
Yeah.
So I tried to stay away from those things unless it was to try and support other people that I knew. And then when this new thing called the UFC came around, I thought, wow, this looks like a really good proving ground to test your heart and your technique. And so I wrote a letter to Art Davey, who was the promoter at the time. And he sent me back a letter and said, hey, it's a little too late for UFC 2. The card is all full up, but we'll keep you in mind for the next one. And then one Saturday afternoon, after I got done teaching class, I went out to eat lunch, came back. There was a message on my answering machine. Back then, in those days, we had answering machines.
Yeah.
Um, and it was Art, and he said, "Hey," he said, "one of the alternates, actually Ken Shamrock broke his hand.
Mm-hmm.
Take one of the alternates. I'm going to put him in Ken Shamrock's spot.
Wow.
I want you to come down as the alternate." And this was less than 2 weeks away from the actual event. I tried to call him back. He couldn't get hold of him, so I called him first thing Monday morning, and I said, "Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to come down." I asked him, I said, "Will I get to fight the other alternate?" Because I knew that's what they did in UFC 1. The two alternate fought as like a preliminary. And he said no, because UFC 2 is a 16-man tournament, and UFC 1 was an 8-man tournament. There won't be time for that, so you won't get to fight the other alternate. And I said, "Well, under what conditions will I get to fight?" And he said, "Well," he said, "if somebody gets hurt or doesn't show up between now and fight night, then I'll put you in their slot. If everybody shows up for the fight and everybody's healthy," he said, "then we won't use you, but I'll try and get you in for another one if you come down here and do this for me." So I said, "Sure." And so he FedExed me the tickets. About a week and a half, maybe not long later, we flew down to Denver, and that's how I ended up there.
Wow, so you were an alternate of an alternate, and there was like little to no chance you were going to fight.
Well, yeah, the alternate that I replaced was Johnny Rhodes,
and that's who you ended up fighting, right?
And that's who I ended up fighting. Yeah, so there was a lot of interconnectedness there.
That's crazy.
When we were there, I remember that UFC was in those days they were on Friday nights. And on Thursday night they had the press party, and Art came up to me and said, "Hey," he said, "the last guy just showed up, who happened to be Johnny Rhodes again."
Yeah.
And said, "Everybody's here, everybody's healthy, and sorry, but you're not going to get the fight. I really appreciate it. Will you consider coming in for a later UFC?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I can't do UFC 3 because it came at a time when I had a commitment with my Okinawa karate teacher." I said, "But after that," I said, I would love to come down." He said, "Hey, fine." Okay. So the next day rolls around, and it was chaos. They moved the venue that was supposed to be at McNichols Arena.
Yeah.
They pulled that, and they put them down literally on Skid Row at a place called the Mammoth Event Center. And it was just a trashy place. There was drunks and addicts passed out on the sidewalk.
Wow.
It was too small. They didn't have enough changing rooms for the fighters, so they rented a hotel across the street, which was even worse. A lot of the rooms didn't even have doors on them. And it smelled of urine and everything else. And so poor Art is going crazy trying to run the event. And he looks at me and he says, "Hey," he says, "you got to help me." He said, "I got to keep this thing running smoothly for pay-per-view. So why don't you help me?" He says, "You know all the fighters, you can find them. And when I tell you who I need, you go find them and bring them up to the staging area so we can get them down to the cage on time." So that's what I was busy doing, and I had just brought up Minoki Ichihara from Japan, who was Coach Gracie's first fight.
Yeah.
And waited till he got on his way down to the cage, and I was going down to get the next guy. Don't remember who that was, but I remember walking down the stairs and trying to go down to find whoever it was. Florian Gracie's coming upstairs. He grabs him by the arm, and he goes, "Are you ready to fight?" And I looked at him, and I went, "What?" He goes, "Are you ready to fight?" I said, "You mean right now?" He goes, "Yes. Hamaker hurt his hand, and he cannot fight.
Wow. Yeah.
So I need to fight." And as it turns out, a Dutch guy named Fred Hamaker, who had just fought Thaddeus Luster and won, he said he hurt his hand and he couldn't fight. And nobody had mentioned that, hey, maybe somebody's going to win but not continue. And he was the alternate. And nobody had mentioned that, so the thought never even crossed my mind. So I had to scramble around and find my guys who were with me there. They were out in the audience watching the fights. And I found them and got a hold of my gear. Went and tried to find a place to stretch and kind of get my mind back into things. And that was probably like 10 or 15 minutes, and then I was walking in the cage to fight.
That's about as last minute as it gets, huh?
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah, good thing your team didn't go home or something like that.
Well, we were in Denver. They couldn't leave. We were from Minnesota, so I couldn't get out too far.
I got you. So yeah, I was gonna ask you, what your base style? It was karate, right? Shurin Shiru.
Okinawan karate, one of the Shorin-ryu styles.
Okay. What do you think of like modern fighters that use those similar techniques, like Wonder Boy Thompson and Lyoto Machida? How's that make you feel to see some modern karate do well in the UFC and high level MMA?
I like it. I'm happy to see it because I always have, and I still believe that karate is a great style.
Mm-hmm.
Karate was not meant to be a sport in the
Yeah.
first place, and that's one of the things that was my downfall.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I never trained for sport,
Mm-hmm.
and I was not used to training or performing in front of people. I
Yeah.
hated it. I'm an introvert. I'm not a person that likes to be up, in the limelight,
Of
and
course.
that's part of what my downfall was.
Yeah.
Technique-wise, there's a lot of good techniques in karate. What a lot of people see nowadays that's called traditional karate really isn't. It's Americanized sport karate.
Yeah.
The closest thing to what I do would be Lyoto Machida.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
His style is at its roots has a link to my style at its roots. So the way he fights would be a lot more similar to what I do than what anybody else, like even Wonder Boy or anything else. And don't get me wrong, he's a phenomenal. Wonder Boy's a phenomenal fighter.
More of a kickboxer.
But more of a modern kickboxing style, where Machida is more old style. His father was trained in Japan, moved to Brazil, and he never changed to a sport-oriented style. He kept fairly traditional. And the way Machida moves, the way he uses angles, precision, the foot sweeps, the things that he does, those are all things that are very recognizable to me from what we do.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, you said that you don't like the limelight. I mean, you only had 15 minutes to prepare for that fight anyway, on top of adding the pressure of the fans there. Do you think you would have fared better had you had, like, a full, like, time to get ready, like, you knew ahead of time? Do you think maybe you would have done a little bit better?
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind I would have done better. I'm not going to say I would have won, but I would have represented myself better, and I would not have been so emotionally crushed by the experience had I performed in a way that I thought would have been something I could have not hung my head about.
Yeah, for sure. And is that what motivated you to make that comeback fight about 11 years ago when you had that second fight?
Yeah, that's I was haunted by it. And again, not because I lost, because damn near 50% of the guys that walk in the cage lose. You know? Figure it out. I mean, two guys go in, unless there's a draw, somebody's going to win.
Oh yeah, someone's got to lose.
and I have no problem with that. I can I can accept coming up short,
of course,
if it's because of the other guy's superior technique. The other guy's better trained. If I just come up short because of a reason like that, but to come up as short as I did and to misrepresent myself and my style, my teachers, that really hurt me at my core. And I wanted to at least be able to say that win or lose, I came back and tried it again. And another thing is I didn't want to be the guy that had one fight and lost and never had the balls to come back and try it again. So I said this before that, but a lot of people say, hey, what happens if you lose again? And I said, well, you know what? I said, it's happened to me once now, so I'm prepared for it if I do lose. And there's not going to be any surprises like there was in UFC when I'm going to know that I'm fighting. There's rules, there's rounds, there's weight classes, none of which did we have at UFC 2. There's gloves, there's a referee who can stop the fight. John McCarthy couldn't even stop the fight at UFC 2. He had the authority to even do that. So, and then I also said I'd rather go to my grave 0-2 than 0-1. Because at 0-1, it means, hey, I got my ass handed to me, and I never came back and tried it again. And I wanted to at least come back and give it another shot.
Yep. And no one's going to question your heart there, Fred. That was pretty impressive. I mean, how old were you when you did that? 50-something?
53.
Yeah, that's damn impressive. I'm sure your opponent was nowhere close to that age. He was probably...
No, he was 24-ish, I think. Something like that. He was about my son's age.
That's crazy. Yeah. So yeah, is there any other stories you can think of from that first UFC you were in that just is like something that you want to tell or anything like that?
My experience was pretty much focused on what happened to me. I didn't really have a whole lot of interaction with everybody else. I ran into Hoist in the elevator once. Hoist is a real nice guy, but not before a fight, not when you have a chance to be the one fighting him.
Yeah, I've heard that.
He had his game face. He was all business. I walked into the elevator. I made eye contact with him, and I nodded at him, and he just looked at me and nodded back, and it was a real quiet elevator ride up. And after the fight, he was all smiles, very sociable, very happy, but hell, he just got handed a check for $60,000, won 3 fights in almost no time, and didn't get scratched. So if he wasn't happy then he probably got some issues he needs to deal with. Because I think anybody should have been happy.
Yeah, I got you there. All right, Fred. Well, I'll let you get off here. Do you want to tell anybody about your school or anything like that? I know you teach martial arts still, and I know you're real into it still.
I'm still teaching and training here in the Kansas City, Missouri area. I don't have my own gym or dojo. I train out of other people's schools. I don't have enough students to be able to be sustaining rent and all the other expenses. But I train Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays from 5:30 until 8:30. I still train both traditional karate and weapons and also MMA.
Awesome.
Doing a lot more weapons work now than I used to, working with a couple other people who are teaching me some things I haven't done before, and refining some of the things that I have been doing. A man named Peter Carbone from Michigan, who I go out and see, is one of his main representatives here in the Missouri area, Gerald Wickland. I train with him at least once a week, and that helps keep me growing, learning new things, keep me stimulated, and want to move forward, because my goal is to always train, to always get better, to always improve, and to try and pass on whatever I can pass on to anybody who's willing to learn. I've got one young guy. He's just 15 years old, but he's really come a long way. I've been watching him probably for the last 8 years or so, and he finally started training with me a couple of years back. And he's growing like a weed, and he's getting strong, and he's really cracking the pads in the mitts. And when we roll on the ground, he's gotten strong. And so he's a real good guy. His name is Ethan. He's one day, if he fights, I think he'll make some noise, because he's really a deceptive kid. You look at him, and you wouldn't really think he had a whole lot going on, but he's all there. He's a real quiet guy. Like I said, we do the grappling too, and he's all there with that. Got a couple other guys. Got plenty of room for more if anybody wanted to join us. But there's a lot of martial arts instructors out there, and a lot of them are more outgoing and more popular than I am. So, and I don't advertise. If somebody shows up to train or contacts me, I'll gladly help them out. But otherwise, I just do what I do.
Awesome. All right, Fred. Well, you're a true martial artist, that's for sure. I mean, that's what a martial arts is all about, just getting better and being respectful and always keeping yourself better. I thank you for your time, Fred. You take care.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Have a good one.
You too.